question.
Yes, sir.
Do you try to hit the, where do you try to hit the ball? Or you don't even worry about it?
Into the target.
When you're stroking the ball, do you try to just keep the putter low and go through the ball? Or do you try to hit the middle of the ball? Or do you, I mean, when you're trying to strike the ball, it doesn't even enter your mind?
Good question. Good question. Because the essence of that question is indeed the problem. We talked about this a little bit earlier today. The situation that I see causes all the problems is the ball. And the reason I say that is, look at those beautiful practice swings when you go to try to hit a full shot. And I see that on the putting green as well. But the minute the ball is in front of you, your focus changes. It changes from a swing to hitting at the ball. Now, Doc asked an important question here. What do I focus on? To be perfectly honest, I focus on the target. I try to feel what I'm seeing. That's why that drill of looking at the target while I'm striking the ball is so important for you to learn, because it takes your mind off of the ball and puts it directly on the target. In other words, the goal, once again, is to feel what you're seeing. You've got to meld the two together or you're not going to have a good shot. You have to feel what you're seeing. Now, we all think of, we look at it, and again, I bring it up to your point, I've had many people step up to the ball. I said, okay, let's go to that pin right over there. And they get up, they line up, and then I get directly in front of them. And I ask them, how far is it? It's incredible how far they tell me. 40 feet on a 15-footer. 10 feet on a 25-footer. There's no sense, because they never looked at the target. They never thought about what was going on here. They got themselves so intent on hitting the ball that they never realized what the target was all about here. If you look at good players take an attentive look at the target. They take their practice strokes while they're looking at the target, trying to feel what they're seeing. Poorer players, they get the line, okay, now their focus is on the stroke, not the target. And that's where the problem comes in. They lose all sense of where it is. Tom Watson had a great drill. He would get on the putting green with 5 golf balls. And he'd start from like a 6 or 8 footer. And he'd have the balls fairly close together. And he'd take his look at the target. He'd get himself ready. He'd go and he'd strike the first ball, trying to knock it in the target. From that point on, he wouldn't look at the target. He would just get up there and hit each one, trying to see if he could remember the distance. And he says, I used to practice those on 15 and 20 footers. He was trying to keep his focus on the target, seeing how long he could do it before he lost the feel of it. Because we've all been over the ball, and in a nanosecond, our focus goes to dinner tonight, getting the tires rotated on the car, whatever it is. All of a sudden, we lose the thought process that we had while we were looking at the target. Your goal as a player needs to keep in the moment, because the minute you deviate from that, all of a sudden, you're going to lose track of what's going on. So in answer to your question, Doc, I really try to keep my mind focused on the target. Now, there was a great movie, I don't know if you ever saw it, The Patriot, with Mel Gibson. Love those kind of movies. But he said when he took his 2 boys out and they were trying to rescue his other son, and he handed the boys the rifle, he says, remember what I taught you. Aim small, miss small. Now think about that. Aim small, miss small. If you aim in a general way, you're going to hit a general shot. But if you are very specific about your target, you stand a better chance. So, when I look at this target right here, I am looking at a very specific spot. It might be a little discoloration, it might be the edge of the cup, it might be anything that I can come up with to get me to aim at that one spot, because that's what I want to focus on. And I will look at it almost to the point of staring at it in my practice strokes, and when I bring my head back, it's in my mind's eye to go to that inside left edge where that little dark spot is on the edge of that cup. That's what I think about. And I trust my swing when I made those practice swings to feel the length and the speed of my stroke to do that. Balls go to roll. Every putter has loft on it. Typical putter today has about 3 degrees of loft on it. The older putters used to have 5 degrees or more. The older putters, when I say older putters, the classic putters in the Hogan era, let's say, when the greens were slow and they had a thin putter, that's the way the style was, but the greens were very slow back then and there. If you watch Sheld's Wonderful World of Golf, you watch a Hogan-Snead match or something like that, they are banging that ball to try to get it there with the skinniest little putter, not some big fat dude like this one. So they would have to use a lot of hand and wrist action in there because your hands and wrists are your #1 speed producer. But that's the way they played back then. Now with the greens being faster, putting has changed. The persons that changed it more noticeably than anybody was George Archer, because he was very tall and he had his own style. And the way he did it was his arms hung down straight. Now that was an interesting change in itself, because elbows used to be out, there was all kinds of angles here because you were trying to get your wrists into a position where the rest of yourself was still and you were flipping at it with your hands more. Now, once George did that, it changed putting completely. That's when you started to see the modern era come in. What they did was arms hung down now. Notice how there's no angles in my left arm. Now I use a 32-inch putter and I'm 6 feet tall. My arms, I wear like a 40 long jacket. My arms are long and I like to feel my arms hanging down completely. I don't like to feel them bent at all because that creates angles. And the one thing I don't want to do is push the club past my left arm. I want to lead the club through the ball. By leading it, my angle comes in and a slightly descending blow hits the ball and eventually comes up. If you've ever tried to hit up at a ball, watch what happens. You can miss it, that's for sure, or you can hit the top and the ball jumps. It jumps because when you put that topspin, it goes down and it bounces and then it bounces back up again. I learned this hitting a tennis ball one time. Just for kicks, there was a tennis ball on a putting green at the club I used to be at, and I tried to hit it and I couldn't stop it from bouncing until I actually hit down on it. And I was impressed. That ball didn't jump at all. So trying to hit up at the ball is not something I've ever tried to do from that point on. Because when I hit up at it, I see this ball skips and bounces. And if you've ever putted on a green that has dew on it, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. Because the minute that ball takes off, you see all these skip marks, and then the ball finally goes. Or you hit it and it skids, and then finally rolls over. But if you hit down more on the ball, and I know there are people who will tell you to hit up at it, but if you hit up at it, again, you're more likely to hit it on the bottom edge of the club, and then you make the ball roll down and it bounces back up. But by feeling like I strike down, that ball hugs the carpet better than anything I could tell you to do. Now, am I actually striking down? It feels that way, but I'm getting more of the sense that I'm actually hitting it flush at the very bottom of my arc. Because I can tell when my ball starts jumping, I'm coming up at it. I'm too much hands moving this way. And I try to feel like I lead the club through the ball so that I don't do that.